I got my fancy cup today.
What is on that cup? Is that flowers?
It's blue flowers and gold embroidery. So imagine that.
Aha.
It's blue and gold. I wonder if
Aha.
that's going to come up in today's episode.
Oh, it might. It just might.
We shall see. Hello, and welcome to Into the Fold, a show where two best friends share their love of Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse chapter by chapter. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Juliana, and this week we are talking about Shadow and Bone, chapters 7 and 8. Hooray! And we're very happy to be here, Jeff, are we not?
Ecstatic. Better than being outside where the weather is frightful, although it is not snowing.
See, here it's actually not that terrible. Yesterday, when I was at the track meet that goes along with the race I ran this morning, I was standing there and I looked like I had run the race, but I had not, because it was so hot and humid. And my mother said, "We need to go home," and I said, "Nope, Mom, we're going to watch this. There's only 5 more minutes left."
Please tell me your mother talks like that. I know your mother doesn't talk like that, but I need you to tell me that she does.
She sounds exactly like that. It's uncanny, my impression of her.
Yes. Okay, now I have everything I need to go on with life.
Okay.
So just as a reminder to the listeners, if you have not read up to chapters 7 and 8 of Shadow and Bone, there will be spoilers up to that point, so if you don't want them, feel free to hit the pause button, go back and read up to that point, and then catch up with us when you're ready.
Yep, we'll be here waiting, so...
We don't have anywhere else to be. I mean,
Nope.
I do, but you don't know that because this is pre-recorded.
Yeah, and if you have us on pause, we're just hanging out.
Is it time for us to do that thing where we pretend we have news about the fandom, but really we just end up talking about the show?
Yeah, it's time for News from the Front.
News.
News.
It's a Bob Burgers thing. I figured that out.
Oh, is that what it's from?
Yeah, it is.
Oh.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
So just a clarification from our last episode. I was editing and I realized that I actually used the words, "We got an email from Leigh Bardugo," and that might have made it seem as if we got an email directly from her. We are not in touch with Leigh Bardugo. Can you imagine?
We would be so special.
That would be so awesome. Unfortunately, we are not. I was referring to the email newsletter that she sends out, which people should subscribe to if they're not, because even her emails are well written. I feel like that was pointed out on an episode of one of the other Grishaverse podcasts that we listened to. Maybe it was GrishaCast? I don't know.
Yeah. Or could have, I think we actually pointed that out too.
Did we?
Yeah.
Oh wait, did you say that?
I think I might have.
Oh well. Let's just all agree to share credit and it'll average out to like a C for everyone. Good?
Yay! We all
Great.
pass.
Okay. So just to clarify, I did not mean to imply we got an email directly from Leigh Bardugo that everybody else also did not get. And if I accidentally made you think that, I'm sorry.
And we also want to announce that we have some very exciting collaborations coming up, and we're super excited to work with some other podcasts. The first one is What's That Podcast, which is with Juliana Pedri, and she's going to be interviewing us on this podcast. And I've interviewed with Juliana before, and she's absolutely lovely. We'll let you know when this episode is coming out. And then we are also going to be doing a very fun episode with That Pretentious Book Club, which is Ash O'Rourke and Kendall Shaw. And we'll be talking about Six of Crows with them, which is very exciting. And both of these podcasts, if you have not listened to them before, please go and give them a listen. And then I guess our final announcement within this small subgroup is that we will be working with the Spanish language podcast about Shadow and Bone called Sombra y Cuervos.
I believe that's correct.
Which is translates to Shadow and Crow in English, and they are a Spanish language Grishaverse podcast, and we'll be putting together some special trivia challenge episodes. So as of right now, we have plans to do one for each book. They are also reading along with on the books as we are, except in Spanish instead of in English. So if you're a Spanish language speaker, we highly recommend that you go and check them out. But we will be doing at least one trivia event with them every book that we read. So we will have that out probably towards the end of the year. So look forward to that as well.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited for all of these. That Pretentious Book Club, I've talked to them a little bit, and I listen to their show all the time. And they make, even when they're not talking about Leigh Bardugo's books, you can tell that they love them as we do, because they, especially in their most recent episode, they made a very satisfying number of comparisons to Leigh Bardugo characters, and it was fantastic.
Oh, wow. See, I haven't listened to their episode yet because I've been a tad behind on my podcast listening this week.
That's okay. I mean, you and I listened to how many podcasts between the two of us? Like 50?
Oh, I listened to 45 on my own. There's no way it's 50, Jeff. It's probably closer to 100.
Yikes.
We do have some
Now
overlook.
I feel like I need to step mine up.
I will say a lot of my podcasts are bi-weekly, so it's not as time-consuming as one would think. But
Sure.
especially during the Olympics, I had like 2 other podcasts that I was listening to too, just about the Olympics. So probably closer to 50 for me right now. That's a lot.
Speaking of Grishaverse podcasts, we've already mentioned a few. We just want to give a shout out to all of the other Grishaverse podcasts that are also out there doing the thing, because the fact that there seems to be more and more of them all the time shows that the fandom is growing. And we love all of the Grishaverse podcasts that are not ours. We listen to them. We've interacted with a couple of the hosts of them. We've got some things in the works. And we just want to encourage anybody who listens to this show to give the others a try as well, because you can never have too many.
Yeah. And as of right now, there really aren't even that many. So as we just mentioned above, I listen to about 45 different podcasts, and these are all within them. So if you want to listen to like 5 or 6 podcasts, I would say that's definitely a much more approachable number and not unheard of. But the podcasts that we'd love to shout out are GrishaCast with Eric and Terry, and they are the OG Grishaverse podcasts. And they've been around for, I think, 4 or 5 years at this point, but quite a little while.
Has it been that long?
It's been a while.
Gosh. I mean, I know that they've worked their way through almost all of the books by this point, as well as the Netflix show. And if you go back through their archives, they've actually conducted an interview with Leigh Bardugo.
Yeah, they were really lucky to get that. Yeah.
They even have her voice in the intro and the outro to their show.
Yeah, very
That's
impressive.
a cool thing to be able to boast.
Mm-hmm.
They're currently on Rule of Wolves, so if you want to go back and listen to the books from their perspective, they've gotten up as far as the most recent book that has come out.
Yes, they're on the cusp of things currently. And one of the other podcasts we'd love to shout out is The Crow Club with Anjali, Kat, and JJ, which I was just listening to this morning, their episode about Bagra, as I was taking my shower.
I loved it. It was so fun. We're going to meet Bagra for the first time in our episode today. I love it.
Yes, it was pretty good timing, actually, because a lot of the things that they spoke about in this episode were things that actually happen within these chapters that we're talking about, which was very exciting for me. And we also would love to shout out Enter the Fold with Caitlin and Mandy Kay. And they started as just a Netflix show review podcast. And I believe, well, I can't remember if it's Mandy Kay or Caitlin, but one of them has not read the books before and one of them has. And they were watching the show together. And now they moved on to both of them reading the book together, the first one. And then they're going to subsequently read the books after each of the seasons of the Netflix show comes out. So theirs is a more fun. Yeah, theirs is a much more show heavy, like Netflix show heavy show, whereas all the other, I'd say Crow Club is a pretty good mix, 50-50 of show and books.
Well, the Crow Club is unique because first, one of the things I love about their show is that they say at the beginning of every episode that they started with a group chat, and within a certain amount of time, their chat reached over 5,000 messages, and they just said, you know what, why don't we just start a podcast about it? I mean, they worded a little bit more eloquently than that, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And what's fun is that they're doing character-based, at least at the moment, it seems that they're doing character-based episodes, and they do give you fair warning at the beginning that they are going to be spoiler-heavy, because when they pick characters to talk about, they talk about them across the entire series.
Yeah, the whole spectrum of stuff.
But they do a great job. They always have fun conversations. All these shows do.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking about starting a Grishaverse podcast, if you just started one, or if you are any kind of content creator who is dedicated to this universe as we are, we want to know who you are, so reach out to us so that we can tell the listeners about you.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a pretty good transition to our Voice of the People, Jeff!
The Voice of the People! You need to read our first announcement, because I know that as excited as I was, it was nothing compared to how you probably reacted.
There's no way you're reading the first announcement. The first announcement is mine. There's no way.
Go for it.
So, listeners, strap in. Get ready. Because I have been granted my wish. My wish for Darkling Drag Queen fan art. I am thrilled. I am stunned. I am amazed. I love it.
Adjectives.
Yes. Lots of it. And that, friends, has been a lesson on how to use adjectives.
And who was it that blessed us with this Darkling Drag Queen fan art that can be viewed on our Instagram?
Yes, that was our friend who also does other Shadow and Bone / Grishaverse fan art. That is April May 2200. 2200.
Yes, April May 2200
on Instagram. And she tagged us in some lovely pictures that she had done of other Grishaverse characters, and I promptly asked if she would mind taking suggestions, and she said okay. And I said, will you please draw the Darkling as a drag queen? And she said, aha, that was my next thing I was going to do anyway. And I said, huzzah!
Love it.
Yes, it's, as Jeff put it, she's putting off very much Liza Minnelli vibes.
What I love about the picture is that it feels like one of those perspective pictures where you're not sure, are you looking at drag queen Darkling from the back?
Or the front, yeah.
And that's why the hair is all the way down? Or, like, is it a style where, like, the hair is in front of the face and they're going to do, like, a reveal when they walk into the room?
Yeah.
We also sent out our first kefta!
Yay!
We finally sent out our first kefta from the Etsy store. So a huge thank you and congratulations to our friend Allison, who I understand lives in Belgium.
She does.
And that is where you have sent her kefta.
Yes, it is en route right now. It's on its way. She had asked me for a black and gold kefta, but she said that she had very gothy vibes as to how she dressed. And so I played off that and just kind of worked with her along the way as I was making it, because I'm the one who is hand making these little keftas for everyone who wants one. And it was just really fun.
You can see that on our Instagram too.
Yes, Jeff and I have ours on our Instagram as well as our friend Kendra Dante. Hers is up there too, and we're waiting for the mail to deliver mails to her. It could be years at this point with the way the finished post works. But we also sent them to Terry and Eric of GrishaCast. So if you'd like your own piece of Grisha fan art, you can check out our Etsy shop, and I would love to make a little custom kefta for you.
Now, some reflections that we had on our last episode. We wanted to know, what was your first impression of Genya the first time you read the books? Because we agreed that even though they're probably going somewhere with this, Genya comes off as kind of a bitch to start with. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, apparently, a lot of people were in the same mind as us. Grishaverse fans said, why the hell is she so rude? But over time, I started to like her. That's more or less what we said.
Yeah.
Grishaverse fans put it a lot more mildly than we did. They didn't call her any names.
Well, I mean, our next person, which is Bookworm Alley 93, said, what a massive bitch. I love all the characters. I love her now that I've read the books and learned her story. So she had the
there's
same
a lesson
thoughts as
in
us.
that. A lesson that I think can apply to many, many characters in the series. There's an expression in, I think, fan fiction called hold for the text.
Yes.
I've learned that from listening to Fanatical Fix and Where to Find Them. They always say that whenever somebody has a question about how something is supposed to work and it's about to be explained, they say, hold for the text. So we'll just say, from now on, we'll apply that to ourselves. We'll say, hold for the text if we think that somebody is being horrible, but we think maybe they won't always be.
Yes. And then our last person who contributed to this discussion was Silent Icarus. And they said, honestly, you gorgeous woman, I could talk to you any day if you were real. And I feel like Silent Icarus would very much so like to date and marry Genya. And to that I say, I don't know what happens at the end of Rule of Wolves and King of Scars yet, but I think there's something bad happening to her love interest.
In your defense, you could say that about anybody.
I haven't
actually
actually read it
a lot
yet.
of these characters are going to stretch across multiple books, and something bad is going to happen doesn't necessarily mean they're going to die.
Not necessarily.
Because bad things happen to people in these books. That's what keeps it going. And then just last night, we got an email from our friend Marjolaine.
Yes, we love Marjolaine.
Hi, Marjolaine.
Hello.
Hope the weather is better in France than it is here.
Bonjour.
But back to this email that we got from Marjolaine. She had some thoughts as well on the character of Genya that she wanted to share with us.
Yes.
So according to Marjolaine, she said, before listening to your thoughts, I was about to say that she's the most interesting character introduced in the book for now, but maybe it's because I read a couple more chapters and I also saw the TV show before reading. In a couple of chapters, you can feel she's in a weird and uncomfortable position, but she helps Alina a lot to understand what's going on, and all the implicit or hypocritical rules at the court or in the Grisha hierarchy, and she's the only one really helpful for now. Her impressive skill is focused on appearance, so it might be considered shallow, but it's the most straightforward way to show that all of this court and little palace world is all about appearance. I actually was a bit annoyed by the way Leigh Bardugo's constantly describing how everyone is so beautiful. It's very repetitive, but thanks to Genya, we understand that it's artificial. It's a facade, and she's blunt about it. I'm sure the theme of appearance will continue to be discussed in future episodes, but that's what is striking to me in these chapters.
Ooh, I love I never thought about it specifically like that, but the idea of using Genya as a...
Put a pin in that because I have an apology for you later.
Oh, okay. As a plot device, essentially, to reveal the facade that is sitting over the entirety of the court and also a lot of other things, too. I like thinking her... I mean, I like her as a character overall, but I think of thinking her as an actual plot device I didn't think about before, and I like that a lot.
True, and what she brings up is, I mean, we talked about what our first impressions of the characters were a little bit, and we'll continue to do so as we meet more and more characters, but she's really reinforcing the point here, I think, that first impressions are often not what they appear to be. Genya looked like a somewhat conceited and superficial beauty queen at first, who was not being very patient with Alina, but even across the two chapters we're going to discuss in today's episode, we start to see a very, very different Genya, and we start to understand that maybe there are other reasons why she tries to focus on these things.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm definitely excited too, because Marjolaine is going to also, beyond sending us lovely emails, she will be helping us see what weird French translations there are at some point of some of...
Oh, she did promise that, yeah. She promised that she was going to send us some audio of French pronunciations. For anybody who doesn't know, Marjolaine is a good friend of ours that we've done some podcasting with on other shows as well.
Yes.
So we know that she is a very, very able and experienced podcaster, as well as a first-class nerdy analyst.
Yes, that is very correct.
Yes.
Okay, well that is all the news and feedback that we have for this week, so shall we jump into our chapter discussion, Jeff?
Yes. So here's what happens in Chapter 7. Alina and her new Grisha pals process into the main hall without Genya. We meet the king of Ravka, fuck that guy, and the apparat, fuck that guy.
Yep.
The Darkling has Alina give a demonstration of her power with about a minute's notice, which is more than she's been getting lately. The king is pleased and the crowd of onlookers are in awe of her ability. The queen is a total to everyone, but Alina knows how to throw it back. The Darkling tries to get Alina to accept a black kefta like his, but she insists on having a blue kefta so that she can blend in a little easier. Genya starts to show that in spite of her beauty and special status, she's lonely and just wants a real friend. After a very overwhelming day, Alina cries herself to sleep with thoughts of Mal in her head.
I feel like a decent amount of stuff happens in this chapter.
Up until now, we have been meeting characters that are either going to be better than they appear at first, or characters that we instantly love. Like, I instantly love Fedyor. I instantly loved Alina. However, I'm on the fence about a lot of these characters. About Mal, about the Darkling. I do not care for Sergei, but I don't think he's exactly a villain.
No, I wouldn't count him as a villain.
But when we meet the king and the apparat, I mean, I made it clear in my summary how I feel about the king and the apparat. I do not like them.
The apparat
I mean, the king,
is awful.
I'm a Game of Thrones fan. I am not a fan of every character in Game of Thrones. Because who is a hero and who is a villain in Game of Thrones is a matter of perspective, but I don't think anybody is really going to argue that there are some serious Robert Baratheon vibes coming from the king here. He does not care about anything that really matters, and that's abundantly clear off the bat.
Yeah.
Like, they tell Alina she has to make herself pretty, but appear humble at the same time, so they have to manipulate who she appears to be before she even meets him. And then he's just this big guy sitting on a throne. He's clasping her hands, calling her dear girl. Blech. I don't need him.
Sexism!
Buh.
Welcome.
This is not even the tip of the sexism iceberg with him, you can tell.
Oh, yeah.
They have done so much setup to prep you for how awful this king is going to be.
Oh, yeah. We have the whole conversation with Genya in all the chapters before this about the fact that he won't accept her if she's too pretty, but if she's not pretty enough, he also won't accept her, and they have to create this narrative and stuff. And clearly he is the king of, ooh, a shiny thing! And he acts that way towards women, and he's not a stunner in any capacity, whether you go off of the book description, which is different than how they portray him in the movie, because in the show he's this really big chubby guy who's just like sitting on the throne. Your average, the king that you would think of, rules a random kingdom and is like, I'm here and I just like to rule my kingdom.
They describe him as being skinny in the book, do
he's
they?
like stocky and tall and very plain.
I completely missed that.
Oh, wow, I caught something that Jeff did not. Wow, I think I earned a sticker for this one.
You're as smart as me. You might even be smarter than me.
No, but this is like your 50th read-through, so I'm not catching as many things as you are because...
Well, I know, but see, the thing is, what's interesting is that not only do you catch some things that you never did before, but there are some other things that you just sort of overlook. Like, I just kind of accepted... I think maybe it's because that's how kings like this are usually portrayed. It's just this big, gross, sweaty, sexist, get like a Henry VIII looking kind of guy.
Yeah, which is what they cast for the show, but that's not how he's described in the book. He's described as very much so like lean and just kind of toothpicky looking and just looks very blah. But
now you pointed out something interesting that I didn't catch either. He only addresses the Darkling.
Yes, he never directly addresses Alina, like not in, like he applauds her and is like, oh, good for you, my girl. But beyond that, he skips right over even saying anything else to her and is just like, okay, Darkling, let's talk strategy. And then they peace out for a minute. He doesn't even acknowledge her as an actual person. You can see that he values her as a possession and not as a person to be talking to.
Now, my question to that, you can tell this is a regular thing with the king, but the Darkling plays into it.
Yes, he does.
He could have taken the approach of, he's asking the Darkling about Alina, and he could have just said, well, why don't you ask her yourself? She's standing right here. And if he really had known Alina before this, he would have known that's exactly how you win her over.
Yeah.
You show her respect. Let her speak for herself, because she's capable. But at the same time, you could also think the Darkling has been playing this game with kings for a while. And he might just be playing into the king's hands, or making the king play into his hands, I should say.
That's kind of where I stand on this one, is he knows this king in a way better than he knows Alina as well, but he knows that he's not playing to win Alina's game right now. He's playing to win the king's game, so he has to play by the king's rules at this point in time.
Like the way he gifted Genya to the king, as we find out in this chapter.
Yeah.
That
just makes you crawl from the inside out. It's just like, ugh, especially as we learn more about that going forward.
It's just awful.
Yeah, it's just so terrible.
But what he says about it is something that I still think about from time to time, no matter how many times I read this. He says, we all serve someone.
Yeah.
When he talks about how he gifted Genya to the king. Who does the Darkling serve? I mean, up to this point,
Ravka.
Who does the Darkling answer to?
Ravka.
Or does he okay, so Ravka.
Yeah.
So then you genuinely believe that he cares about his country.
I think he has this convoluted vision of what Ravka is in his brain that he serves. I don't think he has the actual real Ravka that he is currently in his brain when he thinks of Ravka, but I feel like he, like many people in the United States over the past couple of years, 4 years potentially to be exact, have this weird convoluted version in their head of what the country they live in is or should be. And they choose to believe that version of the country is the one that exists. And I think that he is doing something similar where he has this vision in his head of either what his ideal Ravka is and he's kind of serving that vision, or what he thinks Ravka is and he's serving that vision. I don't think he's in touch with what Ravka actually is, but I think in his head he's like, I'm doing this for Ravka, and then whatever version of Ravka is in his head is the one he's doing stuff for. But it's not this one.
So I know it's not everybody's favorite mental image, but do you think it's like a Grindelwald-ish approach to ruling? Do you think maybe look, it's not our fault that we're superior to other creatures. We didn't ask for this power. We were born with it. This power gives us the right to rule. And then at that point, Dumbledore would chime in and say that gives us responsibilities over the ruled, but that's what the Darkling doesn't have.
Yeah.
He doesn't have somebody in his ear saying, well, we should do exactly what you're thinking because your argument is airtight, but we should do it very, very carefully.
Yeah. He needs a coach or a mentor, and clearly there is no
assuming
one out there.
You want this vision of his to pass.
Yeah. Well, we don't. We'll get more and more hints of what he believes Ravka is and should be as the books go forward. But I have a feeling, just knowing how old he is, which is over 125 years at this point, friends. But
Allegedly.
But
the apparat.
Yes.
Ew. She did something with the apparat. Did you catch this?
He did something with the apparat?
No, Lee Bardugo did something with the apparat.
I thought you meant the Darkling. I was like, what are you talking about, Jeff?
No.
We don't need little Darkling apparat babies running around.
When she designed the character of the apparat, when she gives you the description, she did that thing where you create somebody who is obviously supposed to be a bad guy, and you make his description look like what he is.
Yeah.
Because he's dirty, and his teeth are gross, and he smells awful,
like a tomb.
And he leers at you very intensely.
I will say that the guy in the show who plays the apparat does a decent job, but I kind of imagine him to be even creepier and grosser than that guy in the show.
Yeah, the one in the Netflix series doesn't look the way I pictured. Like, they actually made it challenging.
You know,
And that kind of makes me wonder if maybe they didn't catch that and think, you know what, maybe we don't make it so blatantly obvious based on his description that the apparat is like the biggest creep in the world.
Yeah.
Maybe we make him a little bit more charismatic. He still has to look like somebody who probably sleeps upside down.
Yeah.
In the dark. As you do. But no, in the Netflix series, they did not make him look nearly as creepy as he sounds here. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near him.
Probably my least favorite character, I think, in all the books, just because he is just disgusting and gross. And besides, actually, no, there's one other character within Six of Crows I think that I hate more. But we'll get to that. That's not applicable yet. But as of right now, I hate this guy the most.
Tell me about the Queen.
The Queen. Oh, well, the Queen.
The Queen.
The Queen is
not the drag queen.
Not the drag
queen. No, the Queen.
The Queen. Yeah, she's not very nice, and she's literally just there. She's out to meet people who will gain her status, and just the way she reacts to the fact when Alina says she's an orphan, she's like, "Oh, how lovely for you," or something along those lines. It's just...
Yeah, how marvelous. And Alina actually says, I wouldn't describe being an orphan as marvelous. I wouldn't either.
No, me neither. The Queen is very superficial.
Yeah, she is.
And we see that in her description as well, too. Alina describes what she sees, and her hair is like almost too blonde, and her skin is almost too perfect. And you can tell by those descriptions that, and what Jenya has told us already, that she's done a lot of work on the Queen, and that's kind of the reason.
That's her job.
Yeah, that's why she sticks around.
She's the Queen's plastic surgeon. That's her job.
Yeah.
So what do we know? We know the Queen does not want to look old. Jenya's job is exclusively making her look young and beautiful. She's jealous of Jenya because Jenya is younger and more naturally beautiful than her. And we also know that Jenya does not like talking about the king, and the Queen is giving her dirty looks. I think we have enough evidence to put together here that Jenya is receiving attention from the king that is not okay.
Yes. We've kind of...
His wife, the Queen, knows about it, and how many times have we seen this in the past?
Yeah.
The king does as he wishes with whomever he likes, and the Queen has to put up with it because that's just one of the things you have to tolerate when you're married to a terrible man who just likes ruling the country.
Sexism!
It's all over the place.
Oh my god, it's spreading! It's spreading!
Ew, it's making me feel itchy. Gross.
But yes.
So I'm going to play devil's advocate with the Queen here for just a second, because I do this all the time when I watch Game of Thrones with Cersei Lannister. We might have to hold off on really getting into this until we have a little bit more to go off of. Mm-hmm. But do you get the feeling that the Queen is the way she is because she's just a terrible person who looks down on other people? Or is she what she has been made by other people, especially terrible men like the man that she was probably promised to without being asked how she felt about it?
I feel like she's much more a casualty of situation as opposed to like genetics and things like that. I definitely think that given met the king already and some of the other people within his court, that she definitely was probably given away as a gift to him, and he clearly doesn't treat people well. And being someone's right-hand lady for that long in such an assumedly abusive, at least low-key, situation is not good for one's psyche, especially since therapists did not exist back then, and the closest thing she probably has to it is her ladies-in-waiting and also the apparat, which is not a good option.
And they're probably just sycophantically telling her how great she is all the time, because that's what you hire ladies-in-waiting to do.
Oh, my queen!
At least most of the time, that's what you see.
Yeah.
Exactly. You don't keep people around you who are going to keep you in check and tell you what you need to know, even if it's hard. That's what kings do with their advisors while talking about business of state.
Yeah.
It's not fair, but it's a trope that you see all the time.
Yeah. It's too bad. It's too bad.
It really is. It's a shame.
Yes. So one of the other big points of this chapter, Jeff, is when Alina refuses to take the black robes from the Darkling, which is definitely an interesting choice.
They offer her a black kefta, and girl, if you don't want it, I'll take it.
I mean, those things are expensive and they're very well made.
I'll pay for the shipping. Send me the black kefta, please. I'll wear it.
You would wear that thing, Jeff. Like, I would wear it, but you would wear it.
I would put that on just to go outside to take out the garbage so all my neighbors would see, and I would wave at them, oh, hey.
Just like wearing my casual clothing today. Nothing to see here, just casual outerwear.
Yes. So she wants a blue kefta because she wants to blend in.
Yeah. Which, honestly, I can't blame her at this point because her whole world has just been shook so much and she's so used to feeling like an outsider. I feel like this is her one chance she has to kind of not be an outsider because she's seen that these other orders, they want to have her. They were fighting over her in the other chapters. So she potentially could have a place. But if the Darkling separates her from them with this Kefta thing, and we've already seen in the books that the Grisha themselves are very segregated, it would definitely segregate her from the rest of the Grisha and just leave her feeling even more alone than she already is. Genya is very, very defensive as to the fact that Alina is choosing blue over black, and she can't seem to fully understand why Alina would choose blue over black. I think a lot of that comes from Genya feeling as though she would like to wear the black kefta, which would be good for her because, as we see already in this situation, she's already segregated. The other Grisha don't include her in anything. She's very alone. So for her to actually have someone who she shares a robe color with, and especially someone of such power, would be a +1 for Genya, but a -1 for Alina.
Now, I think most Grisha would probably react the same way Genya did. Like, they would be shocked that somebody would have the opportunity to wear the same color kefta as the Darkling and not take it.
Yeah.
Because they have been, he's their god. I know they have saints, but I mean, he's basically their god. They are taken away from their homes as children to train at the little palace to join the Darkling in his crusade to make a better Ravka for the Grisha. And he's the only one with real power sticking up for them.
Yeah.
So I think any of them would probably feel the same way.
Yeah. I think Alina definitely, as she is in a lot of cases, is the oddity in this world that we are submersed in. But I definitely think that...
And that tracks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our quirky, plucky, sassy female protagonist who's not like other people continues to not be like other people.
What a plot twist.
Good for her.
Okay.
I was touched with this, with where Genya and Alina's relationship ended up by the end of this chapter, because Genya is trying to make it very, very clear they can have dinner alone together in Alina's room, which they do, but they cannot eat together when they are in the hall with the other Grisha, because everybody has to stick with their kind.
Yeah.
And it really, you can tell that she's more worried about what her presence that close to Alina all the time would do to Alina's status.
Yeah.
So now she has gone from judging Alina's appearance and deeming it not good enough to trying to tell her, look, I'm doing this for you. If we hang out too much in front of the other Grisha, they're going to be mean to you.
I think this is the first moment in the books where we see that wall that Genya puts up coming down, and that kind of wall of perfection that she has that is very much so just a protection from all the other things that she is suffering from. I would also just like to end this episode, Jeff, on the fact that we almost went an entire chapter without thinking about Mal, but yet we had to think about him and cry about him at the end of this episode. And to that I say, Alina, girlfriend, you almost had it. You were almost there. You almost got through a day without being like, I wonder what's happening with Mal. I don't need that. I don't like him. We've already established this. Okay, thank you for taking notes.
Okay, but I still feel like what I'm thinking at this point is I personally still don't feel like we are at the point where we can start dumping on Mal because we don't have enough to go off
I will
of.
dump him
But
now.
maybe that's just a matter of perspective. So let me ask you, only taking into account what has happened up to the end of chapter 7, what is it about Mal that makes you not want to hear about him?
I think because he all of a sudden showed random interest in her, sometimes sporadically, and pretty much went out of his way to go and talk to her and be like, hey, I'm gonna go Grisha. Just thought I'd say hi. Okay, bye. And then left. And he I don't know, he just seems very oblivious and not good at communication, and also just he clearly really likes her but doesn't want to convey any of those feelings to her, and she's kind of in the same camp, but I don't like
So
him.
is it because your girl Alina is clearly in love with him and he is going around screwing other people and she knows it and it clearly breaks her heart, and we the audience know that, but he doesn't know that because he's just not paying attention?
Yeah, I'd say a lack of him paying attention also, that's another factor. And I would say, yes, I gotta look out for my girl Alina.
And that's fair. I'm glad she has you to look out for her, because I love Alina.
Yeah.
And I wish this wasn't happening to her, because it clearly breaks her heart.
I got her back.
Now let me ask you this also. Yeah. She's clearly got blinders on where Mal is concerned, and she could have told him up to this point, I hate that you go around sleeping with all these other people because I love you. Why don't you see me? And she's obviously not afraid to be blunt and honest with other people who are total strangers to her. We've seen it several times up to this point. But she won't do it with him because she's worried that if she's gauging things wrong, I think, that she won't be able to repair their friendship back to what it used to be. Do you think that's fair, or do you disagree?
I think that is a wonderful counter argument, Jeff. I think that is a very fair argument, and I agree. But again, you cannot convince me otherwise as of this point right now. I don't like Mal, and that is that.
That's fair.
So, I will say that your argument for Mal is a very good one and very valid.
Honestly, I've tried to, as far as that whole relationship is concerned, I try to keep an open mind, and I try to accept that all arguments either way are in some way or another valid. So even if I accidentally implied that your opinion of Mal up to this point is invalid, I didn't mean to do that.
I was just saying that you had a good argument.
I just like the conversation.
You have a very good argument, and I will say that you're backed up with your data, and I will acknowledge that. Will I accept it? No. Will I say that it is correct?
That's fair.
Yes.
Oh, speaking of accepting things, I have an apology I hope you will accept.
Oh, yes.
As I mentioned before.
I'm ready.
My apology to you is based on the fact that I keep pointing out that you're pronouncing character names differently.
Nikolai.
Yeah, not that one. I still maintain that that one is incorrect. Specifically, I'm thinking of Genya, because that's how most people pronounce it. That's how Lauren Fortgang pronounces it most of the time in the audiobooks, but I did catch on my most recent re-listen that she does throw at least one Genya in there.
Yeah.
So I'd like to apologize for calling it out so much, because clearly it's something that everybody does. I mean, we talked in our last episode about how if other people are pronouncing these names differently, we want to hear it.
Yes, we do. And still, if you have other pronunciations, send them our way. We're happy to hear them.
For sure.
But I will accept your apology. Genya says she accepts your apology. And I think with that, Jeff, we shall move on to Chapter 8.
Good. Tell me what happens in it.
So, in Chapter 8, Alina finally receives her blue kefta, and after that, Genya escorts Alina to the Little Palace's main room for breakfast. Alina then dines with her newly found friends Marie and Nadia, who are two ethereal guys who don't really seem to like Genya very much. And there's also a lot of talk about who gets to sit closest to the Darkling during meals, even though he's not really even there. And Alina is peppered with questions about her past, and people are just like, ooh, wow. Genya takes Alina on a tour of the Little Palace grounds. She shows Alina the palace library and the fabricator's workshop, and they spend a lot of time talking about the anatomy rooms in the Corporalki wing, which she doesn't get to visit because their work is a secret. And she's also wondering in her head, I wonder if Mal could come visit me, and to that I said no. The tour continues outside where Alina sees the school for the young Grisha summoners and the pavilions on their way to see our friend and colleague Bagra at her hut. Alina is told to enter the hut alone. Jenya conveniently kind of escapes, and then we meet Bagra, an old woman who wants a demonstration of Alina's powers now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, grabs her by the wrist and says, "Let's see what you can do," which is more or less what happened when she met the Darkling.
Yeah.
Probably no connection
there.
there.
Yeah, no way that there's any
Those
connection.
two things don't have anything to do with each
Nope.
other. Just disregard.
Nope.
Alina is very, very stylish now in this kefta, I'm sure.
Yes, she is very
It's
stylish.
light but durable. It looks cool. And they snuck something in on her. Because she was talking about how she didn't want to wear the black kefta. She wanted to blend in. And so they said, okay, we'll give you a blue kefta, but guess what? Your collar and your cuffs aren't going to be any of the three colors, because guess what? You're not summoning wind, water, or fire. You are summoning the sun, so we are going to give you gold cuffs and a collar. Good luck blending in that.
See, that's honestly my favorite color combination out of all the keftas that we get, unless we did a purple and blue combination or purple and like gold, then I would be down for that.
See, you don't really get this point unless you listen to the audiobooks, and we talk about the audiobooks on here all the time because you have them and so do I. It's striking to me how we've already talked about how they give some of the characters she may give them a voice, but she has an American accent.
Yeah.
And so the characters do as well. But then she gives some of the characters very heavy accents.
Like Sergey.
He sounds like he is going to go find Moose and Squirrel.
I can't do
Or that he is going to fight Rocky, and if he dies, he dies. I sincerely hope our accents do not alienate people who might actually have those accents.
That was a pretty good
Rocky. We are not
Rocky.
trying to make fun of you, we promise. But the accents with these characters when you listen to the audiobooks are really all over the place.
Yeah,
and it keeps getting better. Because at first we just had some people have these Russian-ish accents, some people have American accents, but a voice on it, depending on what kind of character they are. And now Marie has a British accent?
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
I'm very excited because I read through the books the first time I read them, and this is my second reading, and this time I'm listening to the books, so I don't even know what's coming down the pipeline. It could get like real creative for all I know. But this is the point where we meet a lot of the other Grisha who are within the fold of the Grishas that are in the little palace, and we also see how the seating is arranged. And this, Jeff, I'll tell you what. No. Stick to the stuff you know. If you want to be cool,
thank
follow
goodness.
one simple rule. Don't mess with the flow. No.
You're singing.
Stick to the status quo.
She's singing High School Musical.
Look at me.
It's
and
happening
what
again.
Do you see? Stylish beyond
I really
compare.
cannot stop you from doing this, can I?
I know that whole song. You better bet your butt I know that entire song. And the girl who does the breakdancing is an icon. I follow her on Instagram, and she is a professional dancer, actually.
But even the position of the tables in the dining hall is yet another thing they cling to try to figure out who is the superior order of Grisha.
Yeah, it's very High School Musical.
Because it's kind of funny to be this moment where you realize, okay, so the Corporalki consider themselves the elite, and yet the Etherealki are the ones who literally sit at the Darkling's right hand. And then that argument doesn't hold a lot of water in this moment because the Darkling's not even there.
Yeah, they all are fighting over positions, relatively speaking, to the Darkling, who we are told literally never shows up for meals anyway. So they're fighting for positions next to his chair.
You take what you can.
Sometimes you just have to go with the flow and be cheerful about it.
Nice.
Yes. And
I liked it.
Thank you. And they're really just jostling for power and position. And I will amend the fabricators in this because they don't seem to care or even make a comment about this situation. And I'm assuming that they are kind of directly in front of the Darkling in this setup. If one of the other orders is to the left and the other one is to the right, that would put them directly in the center. So
it might be an intimidation thing, now that I think about it. It might be, because we talked a little bit about the difference between different orders up to this point, but what I'm starting to think, just as far as the first 8 chapters of Shadow and Bone, is that the Materialki have just sort of resigned themselves to the idea that they are a support team.
Yeah.
For the others, essentially.
Yep.
They have to work with materials to make things, and the things that get made by them are they're like the dwarves in Lord of the Rings or the goblins in Harry Potter. Like, they know how to work with materials in a way that nobody else can, and they make things that are of superior quality. But in the end, it's the things they're making that have the value, and they, as people, rarely get the same amount of respect as the things that they're making.
I feel like they're like a...
So at this point, I feel maybe it's just an intimidation thing. Maybe they've resigned themselves to the idea that, well, we're never going to win this argument, because there's 2 orders that think they're better than us, and we have nobody trying to make an argument that that's not the case.
Yeah. I definitely, as I've said on previous episodes, my first quiz that I took had me as a Durist, which I identify with because I definitely am a creative person who likes to create things. And I definitely feel the vibes that these people are putting out of, it's not worth it to fight this because we're not going to win this war. So why expend the effort into something useless?
But what I'm fascinated about, we meet very briefly meet a character who is finally here to represent the Order of the Materialki.
Yes.
His name is David, and he is precious, and I love him. And it's not fair to make assumptions about the whole order based on one example, but if David is any indication, then maybe it's one of those situations where you have the type of personality that lends itself to being a good Materialki, that you don't want to be aggressive and loud and in front of people and getting people to pay attention to you because your work is going to be in a lab.
Yeah, I definitely...
You're going to keep your head down and focused on doing the thing that you're good at. You're not worried about other people's opinion of you.
Yeah, I definitely see this order as, specifically David, being very similar to the personality type of people who take lab jobs in the science fields, because those are the people, and I have friends, and I do not speak for all of these people, but I have friends, and my dad is also a biochemist, that they just want to go to the lab, they want to work with the chemicals that are not going to talk to them, they want to listen to their music or whatever, and then they would like to go home and they would like no human interaction. Thank you very much, and just leave them alone because they're doing something mind-blowingly awesome and developing something that no one else's brain could comprehend, but they're just not out there being like, look at me, I'm so wonderful, I want to tell everyone about it. They're like, leave me alone, I would really just like to do my work, which I love, and then go home and not talk to you. And David puts off very much so those vibes that he is doing his work. He's like, I like items better than people. And then just, or more my thing is sometimes I like dogs better than people. But it's...
And the points in Jenya's favor of being more than just a superficial just keep on coming.
Yeah.
The way she talks to David, it is so obvious she is trying to get his attention. Oh, hello, David. And then when they're ready to leave, goodbye, David. Please look at me. I'm trying to get you to notice me, David.
And he's like, nah, not right now.
I bet if I were one of these special mirrors that you were making for my new friend, you would notice me.
I feel bad for her because he definitely, as we'll get to know David better, we like David. We like him a lot.
Yeah.
And
he's introverted. He's simple. He's described as pale, reed thin, needing a haircut. And Jenya, who could very easily get somebody who most people would call conventionally attractive, she obviously wants this young man to be the one that notices her. And I just want to know more. I want to know everything about them. Like, I want short stories about the first time she saw him and she started to question everything she thought she knew about conventional beauty, and how every time she'd talk to him, she'd go home and she'd write in her journal about how he looked at her like a second longer today when he spoke than he normally would.
I mean, you gotta take it where you can get it, I guess.
I guess you do. But before we actually get to that moment with David and Jenya and Alina in the fabricator laboratory, we also hear about these creepy anatomy rooms that the corporal guy do secret work in.
Would you want to go in there? Okay, you would have to go in there. You wouldn't have a choice.
First of all, no, not really.
Why not?
Thank you very much.
If you're going to be a healer, you have to know how to do. You have to...
I know.
What do you think doctors do with dead people's bodies?
As a healer, but I don't want to.
Well, then I think you better. I think you better come over.
So I would have to get over it, but I wouldn't enjoy it. Is what I'm saying.
I feel like this is one of the few times, Jeff, that you and I would kind of swap being a jurist and a healer, because I would be fine with doing all of that stuff. I don't mind doing gross, nasty things. I just don't like vomit.
I mean, you have to. Being a healer is the closest thing they have to really being a doctor, I think. And in order to understand how to heal the human body with your power, you have to know firsthand how it works. You have to watch autopsies. You have to literally see what is inside the human body and how it functions, and you can only learn that so much out of books. I get that. Allegedly, they are working with the fabricators on new experiments, and I have a theory about that.
Okay, lay it on me.
We already know from what the Darkling has said to Alina that allegedly this is what they do in the Shu Han. Fabricators and Corporalkai, they combine their powers together to create some kind of breed of super soldier. Nobody has seen evidence that, yes, the Shu Han is responsible for doing this, but supposedly it's happening. I think that the Darkling is encouraging these rumors because he knows that they'll get around, and that eventually those rumors will reach the ears of foreign diplomats, like the ones in the Shu Han. So then the Shu will think, oh, shoot, they know what we're up to, and they're replicating our research. I don't know if I necessarily buy that they would do that to their own people, especially not for all that we've heard so far about the Darkling supposedly being the greatest champion of the Grisha and being a Ravkan patriot, but I think he knows that if he encourages the rumor mill to keep churning, then other people will do the rest.
So here's what I think. I think that they are definitely doing experiments that are trying to combine either like some kind of Grisha body part or skin or something like that with an unhuman item, because that is something you can do without killing someone. Like, you can take a piece of skin and try and infuse it with metal, and you don't need to be murdering a person. So I think that something like that is probably happening. To what scale, I don't know if they're actually taking full people and trying to do that, or they're just in the beginning stages where they can take samples of different organs and body parts and just kind of work with them. Because that's what happens in a lab a lot of the time anyways. You get sample skin and sample things like that you just work with. So I can see it happening. And it would be stupid of them to not have that technology if the other nations have it. So I think from a just science standpoint and also a smartness standpoint for the protection of their own country, I definitely think they're working on something like that in the workroom. But, okay.
The workroom.
The workroom, the lab.
I know you call it that because you're a Drag Race fan, and so am I. And I can't remember where it was, but earlier I think I almost said the workroom.
Work.
And I just shortened it to room, and then it came out as the room.
The room.
So we've met David.
Yes.
We found out what the Corporalkai get up to, sort of.
Yeah.
We see little children training and going to school to learn to be good little Grisha soldiers. And we find out that Genya hasn't seen her parents since she was 5, and, quote, this is her family now.
Yeah.
They don't treat her well.
No, they don't.
They've made that abundantly clear, and yet this is her family now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't like the way she says that, because it feels like she's saying that because somebody else is trying to drill that into her head.
Yeah. I think that someone probably is, and that's probably a combination of the king, the queen, and the Darkling. I would imagine that is my best guess.
Oh, I very much doubt that the king and especially the queen care who her family is, if she even feels like she has one. I feel like the queen would probably make her feel like she doesn't have one because she doesn't deserve it, because she thinks she's trash.
See, I could see the queen being very rude and terrible and abusive towards Genya, and then her being like, leave me alone, we're not even related, it's not blood. It's just insulting the queen and saying something along the lines of, I don't need you, or something like that. And the queen being like, well, this is the only family you have. We are your family, meaning like the king and the queen, not necessarily the Grisha, whereas the way Genya is saying it now, you're correct. It sounds like she means the Grisha specifically.
Oh, like she would do the whole, this is the thanks that we get for taking you in, for giving you a place, giving you a purpose. You would have nothing if not for us because you are nothing.
Yes, exactly.
Do you think that? I could see that being the case as well.
A different kind of reframing things as trying to force family on top of her, but I definitely think the Darkling is low-key forcing the Grisha onto her as her quote-unquote family.
Right, because that's what cult leaders do.
They go around and they tell people things, and people are like, yes, I believe every word that you're saying.
Now, they do say that the family of Grisha are provided for.
Oh, yes.
So if you have a child who... So there's an answer to something I think we were wondering. We were wondering, do you have to be Grisha, or does being Grisha mean that your parents had to be Grisha as well?
No.
That doesn't seem to be the case, because they do say that if you have a child who is Grisha and they have to be conscripted into joining the Second Army, then your family will be provided for.
Mm-hmm.
So so we didn't hear anything about when you get out of the army, what do you do for a living? Mm-hmm. We still don't know that, but it seems like instead of you earning a pension that you get when your military service is over, which is I think how it usually works, your family gets the pension.
Yeah. Sort
of like a payoff in exchange for giving up custody of you so that you can serve the country.
Yeah, I don't like this. I don't like the fact that you are just kind of plucked from your family, whether you like it or not. I like the fact that they are training these Grisha on how to use their powers. Is there another way they could have set up the school? I think so. But there's also other factors within the country of Ravka and how Ravkans treat the Grisha as well. So I guess they do kind of have to make sure, if they were to have multiple schools, they'd have to make sure that they were all as equally guarded as the one school that they have now, you know.
True.
But I don't like it, and these poor little kids. I mean,
poor kiddos. They don't know. No. They're kids. They don't understand the world around them, and their image of the world around them is being skewed as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that this is, I mean, that's the point. This is all they know. This is all that they can really aspire to be.
Yeah.
And because you notice that they don't get visits from their families either.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Darkling doesn't want them to have a desire for anything other than being Grisha and serving in the army.
Yep. Which brings me to the question, Jeff. So, what do you think would be Alina's trajectory if she had realized earlier that she was a Grisha and had come to the Little Palace as a child? Do you have any thoughts on that?
My theory is that, and this is just one theory, it's not necessarily the only one I would accept, this is just me thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
What if her original power was supposed to be that she was an Inferni? So she wasn't supposed to summon light,
but
she was supposed to summon fire.
Uh-huh.
Because what is the sun? It's a burning star.
Yeah. A big old ball of fire.
Made of fire.
Uh-huh.
Big old ball of fire. Yeah, so what if she had Inferni power, but she repressed it, and it built up inside her like some kind of second science pressure cooker.
Uh-huh.
And then the reason it unleashes now as the power of light is because the fire within her, literally the fire within her, started to burn so bright that when it was finally unleashed, it's the power of the sun.
Big fire. The biggest fire we know.
If they ever proved that that was the case, then that would certainly be a point for the order of the Etherealchi that they're the superior class, I'll tell you that.
That's true.
Corporalchi would be humbled real quick if they ever found out that was the case. But the thing is, even if that were true, there's no way to prove it.
Yeah.
We can speculate all we want, but there's no way to prove it. Maybe she was supposed to be the Sun Summoner the whole time. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
Is there a different way that makes sense to you?
I think that's actually a really good scenario because I honestly didn't think through it too much. I was just thinking that maybe she would just follow a normal path and she would have been spoiled, I assume, low-key, from being the one and only Sun Summoner. And I feel like she would have had a much creepier relationship with the Darkling because he would have taken her on at a much younger age. And I don't like that for her.
Creepier how?
That he's walking around with like a 6-year-old all the time. And he is technically looking like he's like in his 20s. And he definitely would have like groomed her.
But what's inherently creepy about that?
Oh, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
That would be getting into spoilers, so we can't really get into that.
Yeah. Well, we'll just leave it at that then.
So to close the chapter,
yes.
we get, it's very, very brief, but very, very satisfying, the introduction we get to one of my favorite characters, Baghra. You know what her branch of the small science is?
What, Jeff?
Sarcasm.
Yes, I just read that now and I laughed in my head.
She summons the power. She is an Etherealchi who summons the power of razor-sharp wit and uses it to deliver her own special version of the cut.
Ooh-hoo-hoo. Ooh-hoo-hoo-hoo. I think RuPaul could
Alina
really use
walks
him.
in, she tells her to close the door, and she says, "So, you're the Sun Summoner, come to save us all. I hope you're stronger than you look. You are not going to get anything past this woman."
I was to say, I think RuPaul could really use her in the reading room to read people.
See, a lot of people, when they have to deliver that kind of shade, like they have to say something clever. Like, was your barbecue, like if someone has messed up teeth, you'd say, is your barbecue canceled because your grill is f***ed up? That's something you would say in that scenario. But she doesn't have to do that. Just because the way she she's sarcastic, but just the way she cuts right to the point of what she wants to say. This is going to keep going, and it's going to be great.
Yes.
I love it.
We like Baghra.
She's not the only one who does it. There's another character I really love that I think is coming up in our next episode.
Oh, who's...
We'll see.
I haven't read ahead the chapter yet, so I'm going to have to figure out who that is, and that's okay. I'm okay with that.
But what was your, when you first met Baghra, what did you think of her?
I was like, oh no, Alina is in for a rough time. I didn't dislike Baghra, but I definitely was like, this woman is going to put Alina through boot camp.
Oh, yeah.
And she's not really a treat for Alina. She's a treat for us, though. We like her.
What did you think they were bringing her to Baghra for, though? Because I figure she must be some kind of tutor who works with particularly gifted Grisha to make sure that they can be like the elite of the Second Army. Because they've mentioned Baghra, they've made it very clear that in spite of saying she's an absolute delight, that she will not be. And now here's this sarcastic old woman who lives in a hut on the grounds, and the first thing she does is verbally taunt Alina, grasp her by the wrist, again without asking, and says, "Let's see what you can do."
I think that Baghra is that person that everyone lovingly hates, that they know, that no one really badmouths about them,
Mm-hmm.
but they're the person that you bring the person that you don't like to see, and you say, oh, well, this person, Bagra's lovely, you're gonna love her, and then you scooch them in and you run away. And maybe find a window to watch what happens there from, because you know it's gonna be an explosive situation. I definitely know that at my nursing home, I have a few people who live there that I can deliver friends to, and they will give them a run for their money.
Well, I can't wait to catch up with Alina in the next chapters and see how she handles Bagra. It's perfect that Alina, at the end of this chapter, that she meets somebody like Bagra, because up to this point, Alina has met total strangers that she's able to play verbal ping pong with, but now we bring in Bagra, and it's like, oh, a worthy opponent, I see. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
This week, we, or you, or me as you, will be taking a BuzzFeed quiz. So no need to open it. I will read the answers off to you.
Okay.
And this BuzzFeed quiz, which I hope you did not do beforehand, is...
I didn't.
Oh, good. It's called Find Out Which Shadow and Bone Guy is Your Ideal Match by answering these simple questions. So, Jeff.
Oh, good Lord.
Are you ready?
I am very, very much ready. Let's do it.
How would you describe your personality? Mysterious and loyal, witty and helpful, honest and dependable, or determined and knowledgeable?
I like all of them. They all have something in them that I really value, but I'm going to go with honest and dependable.
Where would your ideal date be? Somewhere meaningful to my date. Off on a new adventure. On a picnic. Staying in and enjoying each other's company.
I'm going to go... Well, I like them all. They're great.
Well, you must pick one. That's not how the BuzzFeed quiz works. You can't pick all of them.
Fine. I will pick off on a new adventure.
Okay. Next question. What quality do you look for in a partner? Honest, loyal, funny, or intelligent? I have a feeling that you're going to have a hard time with this one again, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, BuzzFeed, for not giving me any easy questions, because I wouldn't want that. I'm gonna go with honest. I've already said that about me. I value that in other people, too. I'm gonna go with honest.
Okay, I already clicked it, so it's too late to go back. What is the most important thing in a relationship? Feeling safe and secure? Having someone who is loyal no matter what? Knowing it's you and them against the world? Or being able to be yourselves together?
Definitely being able to be yourselves together.
Okay, awesome. If you could save only one person, who would you choose? My mom, my closest friend, my significant other, or myself?
That's a terrible thing to ask. Why would you ask that?
I mean, I'm not in charge of making these quizzes. I did not do these questions. I just went on to BuzzFeed.
Did you not read this first, though?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't mean that this was going to be free of hard questions.
My significant other. Sorry, closest friend. The person who's reading this to me.
Sorry, Jeff's mom. That's where the apology really lies.
Mom.
And then we also have the question, where would you want to spend the rest of your life? In a big city? In a countryside mansion? On a farm? Or in a cabin tucked away in the woods?
Cabin tucked away in the woods.
Okay, awesome. How would you want someone to apologize to you after an argument? By writing a handwritten letter. By making me laugh. By finding a solution to our issue. By surprising me with flowers. I mean, one of these just seems very rational. The other ones are fine, except I don't know how I feel about the flowers.
I'm torn between two here. But I'm going to choose the one that I think you mean by logical. I'm going to say finding a solution to our issue.
Yes, that is the mature answer. The immature answer was flowers. Because that doesn't really solve your problem. It just kind of masks it. And finally, if you could choose a gift to receive from your partner, which item would you choose? A blanket? Money? Jewelry? Or something homemade?
Something handmade, because that's something that my partner does very, very well, is make handmade stuff. So I'm going to choose that.
Okay. Well, Jeff, I am pleased to tell you that your boyfriend within the Shadow and Bone show is Matthias.
Really?
Yes, you're a total sucker for An enemies to lovers story. The two of you may not have gotten along at the beginning and may have many differences, but one thing you do have in common is your love for each other. The two of you love to be sarcastic together and can always be seen laughing. Your ideal date would be to go and try new things, and you're always down for adventure as long as it's together. No matter what happens, you'll always keep you safe. Wow. How do you feel about this, Jeff? Do you like your new boyfriend? Is he sexy?
I have some thoughts that are not going to be on this episode that I will share with you off recording.
I don't know what the other options were. I think I got Kaz when I filled this one out.
Nice.
Yes. Which, I mean, fine, whatever. But I'm glad that you have a new boyfriend, Jeff. I can't wait to come to your wedding. It will be so lovely.
Yes, my wife will be very pleased.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if anything, he's good eye candy for her.
Sure. Why not? So last week, our question of the week was, in Chapter 7, when Genya first mentions Baghra to Alina, how does she describe Baghra? And the answer was, she's an absolute treat. So congratulations to JennyB13 on Instagram for being the first one to provide a correct answer to that question. This week, instead of asking a question about the upcoming chapters, we're going to reflect on the chapters that we just talked about. Because in the email we got that we read at the top of the episode from our friend Marjolaine, she suggested a segment called MVP of the Week, where you choose your favorite character from the chapters we just read, and it could be based on their favorite line, something that they did, anything that you want. For the record, Marjolaine said that her MVP from chapters 5 and 6 was Genya because of all the reasons that she talked about in the email that we already read, and also because using flower petals to change lip color is cool.
Yes, it is. It's very cool.
I agree. It is. So my MVP for chapter 7 and 8 is Baghra, because we spend very, very little time with her compared to the other characters, but I just really love that you what you see is what you get, and you get that immediately.
Yeah.
She is not going to waste any time, and you are going to have total transparency when it comes to Baghra.
Yeah,
She may not, everything she does may not necessarily be kosher, because these kind of characters do go that way a lot of the time, but you're going to get, I think, total and complete honesty from her.
Yeah. I think my MVP of the week is Genya, because again, like Marjolaine says, in the prior chapter she did some really cool things, but in these chapters we're seeing more of the unveilings of what a strong person she is and how complex she is as well, and how she actually is really looking out for Alina as a friend, which is something that other people in the book so far haven't done for her. Even my favorite character, Mal, hasn't really done for her.
I wish people could have seen your face when you said that. So for anybody who would like to share with us, we'd love to know, who was your MVP from chapters 7 and 8 of Shadow and Bone? You can tweet at us or DM us on Instagram at IntoTheFoldPod. You can email us at intothefoldpod@gmail.com with your answers. And with other things that we talked about, if you have Darkling Drag Queen fan art or any fan art at all, if you have alternate pronunciations of any character names or anything that you think about the books in general, we would love to hear from you guys.
And if you would like to get in contact with us here at Into the Fold, we can be listened to where all pods are cast. And you can also find us on YouTube.
And we've already mentioned our Twitter, Instagram, and our email at IntoTheFoldPod. The email, again, is intothefoldpod@gmail.com. But if you want to do something else to help us out, if you could leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, we would love to see those. And any 5-star positive reviews that we get, we will read on the show.
Until next time.
See you in the fold!
Wow, okay. I feel like I need to take up like a fancy clapping lessons. That way I can be like, and like the way that I look when I clap just like looks like I'm just like very poised and everything, you know.
Just take flamingo dancing lessons. I'm sure that's part of it. There's probably like a whole lesson devoted to clapping before you get to the rest. And now we will begin the nonsense.
The episode is starting!
I can't see your sound bar, but I imagine it went like all the way up. Did it?
Let's take a look. Oh yeah, I went well outside.
Hello, and welcome to Into the Fold, a show where two best friends share their love of Lee Bardugo's Grishaverse chapter by chapter. I hit my thing, so I'm going to do that again.
I was going to say I heard that, so you might want to just do it again.
Gimme more. Gimme more. Gimme more.
There might be an open spot for you, my friend. No, I agree with that.
You took a drink there.
Here, I put it down.
Let's try that one again.
But I'm trying to think of a good transition. Oh, what was that?
That was nothing.
What was
That was not my ringtone. I was not texting my wife while we are recording because that's very unprofessional.
That would be unheard of, Jeff.
And that ringtone is not from 16 Candles because I've never seen that movie.
And this feels like you're telling me only truths.
Yes, I am truthful.